Hi, I'm Linda Mihara, and in today's class, I'm going to show you a really cool model by my good friend Yami Yamaouchi of Japan, and it is called the Fireworks, which is this. It's 12 pieces, and it's a modular piece. So you fold the 12 pieces, put it together, and then this is what happens. It's actually, you have your own fireworks going on by flipping it inside and out. So what's really cool about this is the units themselves are very simple. The assembly is a little tricky, but I'll walk you through that. So you'll need 12 sheets of standard origami paper. I recommend the 6-inch by 6-inch size. You can do 4 each of 3 colors. You can do a whole rainbow, one of each, as long as you have 12 sheets. And make sure that you have a creasing tool and a glue stick. That's really going to help you keep this model together. And then you could have some fun and enjoy by flipping it and making your own fireworks. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's start with our 12 sheets of paper. I'm going to be using 3 different colors. So there's 4 each of 3 different colors, and that's 12. And what we're going to do for this modular exercise is to fold 2 at a time. It's kind of a pretty easy way to get a lot of pieces folded and while still being really accurate. So I'm going to start with the 2 sheets of the blue, and you want to tap it against the table to make sure that it's exactly stacked one on top of another. And so after you have that, holding them together, turn it over, and with the back side face up, we're going to fold it into a triangle. So let's line up those 2 points, hold it lightly in place, pull straight down the middle with your other hand, and then that will create a nice triangle without shifting around. Follow with your creasing tool. So grab your creasing tool. If you don't have an actual tool, you can use a round Sharpie, which is what I have here handy, and then reinforce that crease. Okay. Unfold, and let's fold the other triangle. So we want to get that halfway point here. I'm going to rotate so that I have my points face up. It's a little bit easier for me to do that. Pull straight down the middle, and then make your second triangle like this. Follow with your creasing tool, and then unfold. So now what we're going to do is fold the 4 corners to the middle. We're going to do a blintz fold, which is 4 corners to the middle. My trick here is to fold the 2 opposite points in first, and then the following 2. That way it's really accurate and you're actually very centered with this, which is great. So let's go ahead and fold 1 point to the center. So you want to make sure that you go right up to, but not across that crease line there. Fold it and follow with the creasing tool. Now let's rotate and fold the opposite points. Okay, point. Bring that up. Fold that. Follow with your creasing tool. And then finally, the other 2. So let's go ahead and fold this one here. You'll find that it's pretty accurate. You don't have as much of a angled wide gap that tends to happen when you start from one side and work your way around. And make sure you follow with your creasing tool so you have a nice flat blintz fold. So after you have that, let's unfold those 4 corners. So you have this. Turn it over to the other side. This is really important. Turn it over. We're going to fold it into a rectangle in both directions. So let's fold the first one here. So again, the back side of the paper is face out. This. If you're using pattern paper, whatever either the solid color or whatever that's on the inside is face up. So you have that. Let's unfold it. And then you have this crease here down the middle. And what we want to do is take this bottom edge and fold it to the center. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Bring that in. You also want to use your outside edges to make sure that you're square with the paper. Make your crease. Follow with the creasing tool. And after you have that, let's unfold that and then fold this raw edge up to that new crease line that we've made right here. Okay. Remember, you've got 2 sheets, and so they should be stuck together really well now at this point. After you do that, let's use our creasing tool. So you should have a nice flat crease here, and let's unfold it. Now let's rotate and do the other side. So let's rotate it around. And the first step is to take the raw edge and bring it to the center crease here, making sure that you're lined up with the outside edges. Right. Follow with your creasing tool. unfold that, and then take that raw edge and bring it up to that new crease line here. And follow with your creasing tool. Okay, so now that you have that, let's unfold it. So this is what you should see. You should see these folds. You've got parallel ones here, parallel ones up here, and then you've got those diagonals making those diamond type shapes there. Now let's rotate it. We want to do the same thing for these other two flaps. So let's take this bottom raw edge and bring it to the center. Now we don't have a crease going through the middle, so let's go ahead and put one in. Let's take the whole thing and fold it in half into your rectangle first. So now we've created that guideline for the next series of steps. Let's unfold that. Here's that center crease. So let's take this bottom raw edge and bring it to meet that center, like this. Follow with the creasing tool. Unfold that and then fold the raw edge up to the new crease line. So we just repeated that same series in the previous step. Unfold that, okay? Now let's rotate and finish the last edge. Take this, bring it to the center. Follow with the creasing tool. Unfold that. Fold the raw edge up to that new crease line, like this. And again, you know, being mindful of your outside edges to make sure that they're all square. Follow with the creasing tool and then unfold. So this is what you should see. You've got this square up in here. You should definitely have parallel folds on every single edge of this square. So it should look like this. Now go ahead and repeat that for the remaining 10 sheets of origami, working 2 at a time, working in pairs. So now you should have 6 doubles that have been folded just like what we just did. Let's go ahead and take 2. Let's separate these out. And we're going to go ahead and collapse the models now. So we separated that out. Now remember those diagonals that we did? What we're going to do is create a balloon base, which is basically we're pinching those diagonals, and then you kind of bring your hands together and this collapses into a balloon base. So this is what you want to have. So let's go ahead and separate everything out and turn them all into balloon bases. So let's go ahead and do this one. So you want to start by pinching those diagonals and then bringing everything together and separating it out so that you have your balloon base. I'm just going to go ahead and stack them in like this. So we're going to pull, separate it out, pinch, pinch, make all of your balloon bases. Let's just kind of stack them in there. The next one, pinch, pinch, and tuck them in there. And then just keep going until you have all of them done. So now I've got my 3 colors, and each one there's 4, right? So I've got 4, 4, 4, got 12. Let's go ahead and start, and you collapse them all into balloon bases, and I've just stacked them together like you see here. So let's peel away one of the blue ones, and let's go ahead and flatten it back to the balloon base. Now you see we have all these pre-creases. This is going to make your life so much easier when we go ahead and collapse this. The first step is, you see this first crease here, closest to the point. That's going to be really important. It should be a valley fold, which means it's going to fold to create a valley in the paper. So you want to take the paper here and you want to open it up along that crease line there. And what happens is you have these side pockets here, which are going to squash fold. So what we want to do is bring this down like this. So this comes down. This ends up being a point, and this squashes down like this. The folds are already there. So you'll end up with this house, or like this tent. I like to call it a tent shape, which is kind of cool. Once you have that, there's a second crease. Remember those parallel creases that we did? You see this crease here? What we want to do is take this top layer and we want to make that valley fold by bringing this up like this from the inside. So if you bring that corner up like this, you see what happens here? You end up with a triangle, which you're going to squash fold, making sure that that crease line is lined up with this here. Okay, same thing for the other side. So you're going to take this point here, you're going to open it up, and then you're just going to follow that fold that you have there. And then you're going to squash fold this into a triangle, making sure that you've got it pretty square. This fold line here will continue and follow along that whole edge right there. So this is what it should look like, just like this. Okay, now let's turn it over to the other side and repeat. So again, that first crease line closest to the point, lifting it up from the middle. Here's our point here. And now we're going to squash fold this flap down, creating this point and this flat edge of the side of the tent. And we're going to continue with the other side. So it's helpful if you start from the top. Make sure that you pop this part open and then squash that down. The folds are already there, so it should just fall right into place like this. There's a little tent. Again, we're going to take the flap of the tent here, lift it up, and squash this triangle in here. Same for the other side. So it's just that top layer. We're just lifting this up, and we're bringing this point up to this center here, following along that valley fold that you've created. And then you're going to squash the triangle in place like that. So this is what you should have. Let's take our creasing tool and flatten everything all the way around. And then what we're going to do is unfold that last sequence and get back to the tent. Okay, let's turn it over and do the same thing for the other side. So we're just going to open that up, open up the triangles. And so now we're back to the tent. We want to do that with all the remaining 11 units. So go ahead and do that. So now you should have all 12 units all folded the same way with all of those pre-creases in place. And now we're ready to put this together. So I'm going to move this aside and I'm going to alternate my colors. I'm going to go with blue, then yellow, and then red. So the best way to do this is to go carefully and methodically. If you look here, it does look like a tent. It's got the opening like a tent would have, like this. I found a really easy way to put this together. Normally when you put together a modular, you have a series of tabs and pockets. This is actually a little bit different in that you're actually putting a whole section inside and overlapping one point. Basically, the best way to do this is like this. Turn it upside down. So when you look at your unit, you see you've got these 2 points, 2 mountains that are here. Take the next one, open it up slightly. You know, these all should be identical. You know, you've got, here's those 2 points here. So what you want to do is you want to get your glue stick. This is really important because you want to make sure that you do put this together properly and make sure it doesn't fall apart on you, which causes a lot of frustration if you don't have this together. So let's take the first one. And you see this shape right here. You've got a square. Let me just draw this one as well. So that's your target to overlap the next piece. Let's take your glue stick and let's just go ahead and put some glue right here in the middle of that square. Let's take our next unit. Here's that square here. Let me go ahead and draw that so that you understand what our goal is here. And so what you want to do is take that and place this square on top of that one. You're overlapping the paper and it should come to the halfway point here. It should line up on the top and the bottom here. And that square should be sitting right on top of the one underneath it. Go ahead and give it a little bit of a press like that. And then we're just going to go ahead and assemble the rest of them open like this. It's the easiest way to do this. So I have my next piece here, which is the red. I'm going to open it up slightly. Here's that square here. We're going to go ahead and put some glue stick on there. Take our next unit, in this case, mine's red. And you want to make sure that, again, you're lined up top and bottom. You're lined up with that middle line here, which will make sure that that square is sitting on top of the one underneath it. We're just going to go ahead and continue. So my next one is the blue. So again, here's our square. Hit it with some glue stick. Slightly open your next unit. Sit it right on top. Give it a nice press there so it sticks together. My next piece is yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and put glue stick right there in that square. Take my next piece, sit it right on top of that. So what you're doing is you're overlapping by halves, right? Everything's half, 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 half. And we're going to continue. Here's our square. My next piece is a red one. So make sure that you overlap it properly. And make sure that the top and bottom are flush. Press gently right there in the middle of that square. Grab the next one. This I found is the easiest way to put this together. Okay, make sure that it's sitting right on top of that and it's flush top and bottom. Give it a good press. And let's see, we have yellow next. Glue stick on that square. Overlap it, give it a good press right here in the middle. And just continue. So we want to go ahead and attach all 12 pieces. So it's a good idea if you've got 12 different colors is to set that up in order and then you know what how you're going to attach it. Because once you start attaching it, you want to make sure that you do have the correct one where you want it to be. Okay. Got two more. Okay, and then my final piece here. Okay. So my camera view is not wide enough to show you the entire length of this piece, but it should be, if you turn it over, it should be the correct, sequence of colors that you wanted to have. You see our X's, our squares are nice and neat there. Let's turn it back over this way. So what we want to do now is collapse this whole thing together. And let's start by one end. Let's go back to the front here. It's going to center around this box, this square here. Notice that it's got a valley fold that comes up, or a mountain fold rather, on this end here. So what you want to do is you want to collapse this so this top and bottom point here where they overlap, let's push this in, and you see what happens is that this collapses, and you want to continue. You have to push up underneath here, push in top and bottom here, and continue. Push up from underneath here so that it comes up. Push the top and bottom in. You're just following your creases. These squares here should automatically pop up, okay? And the key to getting it to go where it wants to go is to make sure that you do push the points in this way. So see what happens? So right where these meet here, that's where you want to push in, and everything's starting to collapse. You just push everything in and it should fall right into place, especially if you did a good job reinforcing your creases with your creasing tool. Everything should just pop right into place. If it doesn't quite go as smooth, you can just kind of smooth it out and just make sure that you do see your fold lines. And we're just collapsing everything. I'm kind of holding it together with one hand here as I'm pushing everything in with my right hand. So again, right here where the seam is, those get pushed in. You're just following your creases. Push in, push in, push in, push in, push in, push in. So then it will look like a bunch of tents, flat tents, right up next to each other. When you get to this point, you want to make sure that you reinforce all of the creases. That's going to kind of lock this in place. You can follow with your creasing tool very lightly along the edges here. Turn it over and do the same for this side. All right. Okay. So this is what you should have. You should have this little accordion that has your colors, and it should, each color should have like what you see here. You don't have extra pleats going on, except on your end pieces. You've got an extra one on one side and then a point on the other. So now we're going to lock this thing around in a circle. Okay. So if you just kind of flip it over, it'll sit on one angle. It kind of sits out it so that you have this open and facing out. That's what you want to have. You want to bring the two loose ends together, and you want to, okay, so this one here, you see there's 2 points here and 2 points here. What we want to do is fit if you open the one on the left, you want to fit it inside the one on the right. Okay. If you pop it open, you see there's that square. And you got that square here, that's the first one. So you want to slip that inside so that it overlaps that square. Okay, I'm going to repeat that so that, and I'm going to draw this so that you know what your target is. It's okay if you open up those two ends like that. Here is this. And it's going to overlap the one here. So I'm just gonna sit it right on top of that. Oh, let's put some glue stick there too. Put some glue stick on the one on the bottom here. That sits on top. And the reason why the one on the left sits on top of the one on the right is if you look at the rest of your, or the next one over, you see how that yellow is on top of the blue? That means the blue is going to go on top of this red here. Now you want to make sure that you've got your layers, looks like that, right? You've got, if the boxes, the squares are stacked one on top of another, again, it should collapse into place. And what you want to do is ensure it by, let's go around and let's pinch all those ones, the points that are inside. So your model should be completely enclosed so that you have a round shape like this with all those pleats coming out. Okay. Once you have that, what we have to do is put the lock in place. And this is where it gets a little tricky, but it's really very, very simple if you do it this way. So on this center one here, you've got one that pops open on more on the outside, but the one here up on top, it's shorter, right? So you see these points here. If you look at each point, there should be a triangle. You see this triangle here? You've got triangles right on this side of the point. So the first step is to push all the triangles in and pinch it. So it goes in like this. So go around and pinch all of those triangles inwards. Again, your folds should all be there. So it's a matter of pushing those triangles in, just like what I'm doing here. Pushing that corner in along the crease line. Now, if yours is off by a little bit, like mine is here with this blue and red, you see how that little excess is sticking out? That's fine. Just push that in. And just keep going around, push in all of your points. All your triangles go in. Okay, so this is what you should have like this. Now let's go ahead and push the corners in on the outer ring here, this lower ring. So the points are these sticking out here. So what we're doing is pushing this in and pinching it, okay? It's the ones that are sticking out, and you should see your triangle fold. So you take your points and push it in. Gonna push that in. Just keep rotating. So what we're doing is the first part of the lock. And it's, again, following those pre-creases that you already put in place. Okay, so push all the triangles in. Also make sure your layers are evenly split. You don't have any stray flaps. Everything should be even. Okay, so now I have my outer ring with the corners pleated in like this. Okay. And so now the finish, this is the final step. Let's look here between these two here. So you've put those points in. What you want to do is kind of flatten this. And what happens is that this flap will come up. There is a fold there already. You did this, you see, does this look familiar? Right? This part comes up. So that fold is there. So we want to fold that up. And then the trick is to flip it to the next color and keep going. Bring this up. Turn the page of the book. Fold this up. Turn the page. Fold this up. And you want to keep flipping and folding all of those flaps up like this. And the flap that folds up, you will see two different colors. Okay, like that. So go ahead and find all of those tent flaps and fold those up. This is the part of modular work that I really enjoy, the repetitive action, and kind of also a check to see the accuracy of your folds. Making sure your layers are properly in place and lined up. Okay, so I finished the top. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that these are pinched. And actually, if you turn this over on this part here, all of these get pinched. Like this. You see, I'm pinching this point here. So basically, you're bringing these two together and then pinching this. So you want to make all of the points sharp. So I'm going around, pinching, making sure it's all sharp. This is going to lock it in place. And then now we have to do this one, the other half of this. You've already put those points in, but what you need to do is rotate this so that we can get to this to flatten it. So let's turn it a little bit. So now we have what was originally this outer ring, right? Now it's on the outside. Now we can go ahead and do what we needed to do. So turning it on its side like this, find your first flap. Again, it's half and half. And fold this up. Turn it, fold this up, and just keep completing all those. Make sure that this gets tucked in here. Fold all those up. And once you have these completed, that is actually the fold. You've completed the fold, but there's a couple of hints to make this nice and clean and crisp. You want this model to be crisp. That's a really good description of what your goal is for this model. Like any modulars, you want it to be nice and clean. Okay, so now that I've gotten all of those flaps in there, this is what it looks like. So you want to, before you start flipping this, let's tighten up all of our points by reinforcing those creases and making the inside point just as pointy as the one on the outside. So we're just flattening and pinching all the way around, and then that will lock everything in and make it a really nice fireworks model. Very sturdy too, because the joints have multiple layers. Okay, so this is what you should have. Nice clean points. Turn it over. This is also nice and clean and crisp. So now what you want to do is just start inverting it. Just keep pushing it, rolling it inside and out like this. And that is your fireworks action. Isn't this cool? It's so cool. It's just really fun. I mean, you can play with this thing for a long time, which is really great. And then when you're done, I mean, this looks really cool just by itself, you know, on your shelf. But this is really a fun model by Yamauchi. And I hope you enjoyed that. Again, 12 sheets of paper and some patience and a little bit of focus. And you've got this fantastic model. So that is Yari Yamauchi's fireworks model. I hope you enjoyed this class. For more great videos, check out the YouTube channel, Paper Tree SF. Thanks again for joining me, and happy folding.